Hello and welcome to another episode of the Contractor Growth Show. My name is Mark. I'm your host. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Keith Webster at Keith Webster Construction in Aspen. Really excited for this interview. We've done a lot of research and Keith is just a fascinating character. Keith, thank you for being with us today.
You're welcome, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, fantastic. You've been around in the business for a long time. You've got a lot of fun, different activities happening outside of the business. You've been operating in California and now in Colorado. Maybe give us a kind of a quick rundown of the history of the business and what you guys are up to today.
Cool. I mean, I've been doing this, like I said, a long time, close to maybe right at about 50 years. I started in Houston, Texas back in the early 70s, quickly became unbeknownst to me, I became what they called a golden nail contractor. I kept querying my architects about how can they send me more work. And they said, we can't send you that kind of work because those people aren't willing to pay because you're a golden nail contractor. Never heard that term. Still is not used very highly, but what it was, we started off years and years ago. We had all of our trades in-house and we just built things to a very high quality standard because all my employees / subcontractors were true craftsmen. So that's how we started 50 years ago. And that tradition has carried on ever since. We're definitely never the cheapest contractor. But we are, I think, one of the best. I won't say I'm the best because there are other guys out there that are as good as us, but we're definitely one of the best. So we consider ourselves a very good, high value contracting firm. Like I said, we've been doing it for 50 years. Started in Texas, moved to Colorado, moved from Colorado and split time in Napa, stopped everything in Napa, and now we're back in Colorado 100%.
Okay. And guys, I can verify taking a look at just photos on Keith's website, which is KMWconstruction.com. Sure enough, this is absolutely stunning work, right? These are houses in the hills above Aspen, Colorado, which are very expensive, I'm sure, and very gorgeous, incredible craftsmanship. I can absolutely verify that. Okay, so you were in Houston in the 70s. You guys started with a golden nail contractor doing just the highest level of work, and then you moved around some to California and Colorado over the last few decades as well.
Right. So when I decided to come to Colorado, so I was in Houston starting in the early 70s till about the mid 90s. About 95, I had an accident and I had to wind down some business. At that point, we had about 50 people working for us in Houston. We'd grown to that scale and multiple superintendents, multiple project managers, and a lot of field personnel. One of the things about that was it was incredibly harder to do that than I ever anticipated. It was constantly trying to manage that many people became an 80-hour-a-week job. And it was a lot of work. I had an accident and had to stop working for about 2 years. And then during that period, the business kind of shut itself down. When I was able to start back work, I decided to move someplace where I always vacationed, which was Colorado. And so I drove around for about a month and camping and fishing and hanging out and just checking out places to live. And I came into Aspen quite accidentally. I happened to pick up a guy hitchhiking. I was on my way back to Texas from Durango and I picked him up and he said, yeah, I'm going to Denver. So I'll give you a ride to Denver. It's like about 8 hours out of the way. So ride to Denver. And then was coming back through Aspen. I wanted to come across Independence Pass and it was absolutely so drop dead gorgeous that I said, I got to think about staying here.
Wow.
So I checked out the town, loved the place. I'm pretty much a total outdoors person. Went home, loaded my stuff up into my Ford Expedition in a little trailer, U-Haul trailer, came up here, and the first project I did was for the CEO of Gucci. So that was my first introduction to Aspen, Colorado. It was a very nice high-end house for a pretty high-profile client.
Wow, incredible.
And then that's how I got here. And then I stayed here and again, you mentioned the work is pretty beautiful. It is very beautiful. The client base here tends to be very demanding from a quality perspective. They tend to be willing to pay for that. There's actually people here who want to know how much money they can spend instead of how much money they can save.
Wow.
An atmosphere.
Oh, amazing.
And then 2008 came along, which was when the whole economic crash happened.
Uh-huh.
Aspen shut down really hard. And I had a client here who had two little projects out in California, and things were not going real well here. She said, "Hey, would you go out to California and do these projects for me?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" And when I moved out there, I liked the area out there a lot. And so I moved a lot of my operation out there and was there for several years. And about 5 years ago, started transitioning, or I was going back and forth from Aspen or Napa, about every 10 days. And that was just a lot of work. So though we finished up the last project in Napa, just said, we're not going to do any more. I turned down work out in California, and now we're just 100% here.
Interesting. Okay. Great. Love it. I saw on your site that you like to work really closely with clients on projects. And since I'm getting here, Keith, we actually have some clients in Aspen, and we talk with them often about their client base, and sure enough, selling to just the highest level clients, in some cases, billionaires, people at the highest levels of whatever, financial. And talking about the demanding quality that is there. If you aren't bringing that level of quality, it sounds like you wouldn't even really survive in that market. So when you say that you like to work closely with clients on projects, that may be even a unique situation, the degree to which you're doing that. But what does that mean for you? How do you work closely with clients on projects while you guys are designing, building their property, their house?
It varies a lot here. Again, being up here is a little bit different of an animal because some of our clients are very high net worth people that we're not even allowed to tell you who they are. A lot of NDA type clients.
Sure.
There's multiple layers between the client and us. So sometimes you have to deal with an owner's rep, all the architects, all the interior designers, their accountants, their lawyers, etc. We do have several clients like that. We technically are not supposed to know who they are. Everybody tends to know who they are because it's a small town. We have a client like that we've been working with now for the last 4 or 5 years, and we've got another project coming up for them in the fall. So there's that client base. So you don't get a lot of client contact. We do have other clients that literally we talk to on almost a daily basis. So it's constantly keeping communication wide open. And even with the clients that are NDA clients that you're not allowed to meet with, you need to keep that communication wide open. And I'd like to say we're perfect at that, but we're not. But we try to be, where we update them on a weekly basis, have weekly meetings with the clients. In fact, after I get off with you, I've got a meeting with this client that is from California that we just finished about a $7 million remodel for.
Wow.
And we're in the process of doing some more work for them to wrap up that project. They threw in a few extras that are going to be time consuming. Meeting with them at like I said, shortly after I get done with you. And we meet with them during the project, we met with them on pretty much a weekly basis. Had a Zoom call with them and their interior designers and all of our project management team. It was one of those things where we always try to keep them informed of exactly what we're doing, send lots of pictures, and then ask any questions and leave it wide open for them to make a lot of suggestions and questions. So that's how we work really closely with our clients.
That's great. I love it. I love it. We saw doing research on your site and some different articles have been written about you guys, about your many hobbies, which include professional equestrian, raising and training Arabian horses, being competitive sports clay shooter, a trained chef at the Culinary Institute of America.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're an artist whose work has been shown in New York, in the Soho. So how do you get off having so many amazing hobbies while you're running such an amazing business? Where do you find the time to to explore all of these other interests while you're running the level of business that you are?
Time management, I like to say that's what it was, but it's really not. It's having a lot of extra energy. Now, some of the things were easily accomplished when you had a bunch of people working for you, had a good team in the field that you could trust, and you didn't have to be micromanaged.
Mm.
So that left, even when I had 50 people working for me, I still had time where I could slot things in. And what I do is when I tend to pursue a hobby, I tend to get pretty wrapped up in it. It becomes almost a professional pursuit, not 100% because obviously you have to make time to actually make a living. So I've just, over the years, there's a long arc and I've done things that interest me and I tend to do them to a level that I feel that I'm fairly proficient at. Sporting clay shooter. I used to shoot every afternoon, 7 days a week. And then I started competing and I'd take a weekend off and travel to this shoot and that shoot and water. And I just got to be a AA ranked shooter, which is kind of a high level at least.
A big deal.
Well, the guys who were pros could like the floor with me, but I could hold my own on most shoots. My art was, again, something I'd do at night. I'd leave the office. I had an art studio across the street. I go over there and I sit there and do my art and take a trip to New York and take a few days off and go send my book up or do a show or whatever. And so I tended to do a lot of stuff at night and on weekends when I didn't have work pressing. The being a chef thing, that sort of came about the same way. It was, I moved to California. Again, I did my projects, but then I thought, I'm right here. The accumulator of America literally is right there. I buy it on a daily basis. I think I'm just going to go over there and start taking some courses. And so I did that, which was ancillary to the fact that I also had a catering business on the side years ago.
Wow.
That was yet another thing I did. But it's just making the time to have interests that you can follow and be willing to work hard enough to pay for those interests and then work hard enough at the interest to become proficient. So it's like anything else, just the same way I do my work. I work hard enough at it to become very proficient at it. Like I said, not to be too self-effacing. I think we're one of the best contractors around and have been for many years just because we always want to prefer that highest level of quality that we can possibly attain.
Man, I love that. What a great message. And it's just, and I can see it with the work that I've seen that you guys have done. Keith, curious about our listeners are interested in growing their business. We talked a little bit about some ideas and philosophies you have about growth, and growth at all costs is not ideal, or growing too fast sounds like is not ideal. And I get the sense you've grown the business quite a lot from referrals. When we see that with just such high quality work, it just really brings in referrals. Would you be willing to share some ideas about how you've grown the business? Has it all been referrals? Do you do any kind of outreach or marketing at all? Or has it just all been word of mouth?
It has been 100% referral, word of mouth. Over the years, we've spent money, a fair amount of money, 6 figures, 7 figures on marketing and doing a lot of exposure sort of things that the return on investment really is not there. The way that I have always gotten all of my work is just, here's an example. The project we're working on and finishing up right now, I happen to be sitting on an airplane, sitting next to this lady, and we started talking, and she's talking about maybe buying a house in Aspen. And I'm saying, if you ever need some input about contractor selection, and we talked for the 2-hour flight on the way from San Francisco or Napa, Aspen to San Francisco. And, I knew her name was Alicia, and that was it. And hey, nice to meet you. See you later. Call me Kanemi. Gave her a business card. Probably 3 months went by and I got a phone call. I keep this as Alicia. Do you remember me? And I said, oh yeah, I remember you. And she goes, we bought that house. And it's probably too small of a job for you, but would you be interested in taking a look at it? And I said, sure. And of course, they had checked me out. So they knew who I was. Our website is the one thing that I acquiesced to having done pretty well. we spent a bunch of money on it. It hasn't been updated in a while, but we had a meeting, and my sales pitch to clients is always pretty much the same. It boils down to one sort of core principle, which is if you're looking for a certain quality level of contractor, you can talk to 2 or 3 of that level of contractor, and all the costs that you're going to incur are going to be within probably 5%, because it costs everybody the same amount of money to do business at a certain level. There's this level of contractor, and then there's this level of contractor, and no matter what, it's going to cost you the same. I said, we do not bid projects. If you want to work with us, you hire us. We'll develop a budget for you based on current information that we have and current pricing. And then we'll develop a preliminary schedule for you. And then we'll move into the construction. And that number will vary. And we are open book contractors. We always have been ever since I started this business 50 years ago. We do all of our work on time and materials plus a fee. And that's it. We show our clients all of our invoices that we get from all of our vendors. And we show them a list of all the time that we've worked for all of our guys. And then here's what it costs, and here's our markup. And that's it. It's
amazing.
A little bit burdensome on bookkeeping. You have to put all this together, but it's very transparent. And they see exactly what it cost us. And there's no qualms there usually. So it's
incredible.
And all referring.
That's amazing. And Keith, you don't run into, I don't know how this typically goes. Do you run into any pushback about the time and materials, or just, look, this is how we work. You come with your reputation, bar precedes you, and they say, great, that's fine. Meaning not bid, you don't bid on projects, or do you get pushback, people saying, we got these other bids, we want bids, it's how we want this to be done, or is it just doesn't come up?
Oh, we hear that too. And my answer to that is, if what you're looking for is, I don't need practice bidding. I don't need that. And if you're interested in competitive bidding, I'm sorry, you're probably not the client we want. So we have to be selective in our clients too. And if they're interested in bidding out 2 or 3 people, we just flat tell them that we're really not interested in working that way. And sometimes that's hard to say no, because it might be a really good project. And it's like, you can always find somebody to do it cheap. Yeah, that's not how we work.
And Keith, can I ask you this? Let me know if this is a reasonable question. Of all the people that contact you and say, hey, Keith, we'd like to remodel a project, we'd like to have a house built, whatever, what percentage of those people that just reach out do you end up saying, no, it's not a good fit? Is it a tiny percentage, or is it half or whatever, where it's, no, actually, this is what we do over here. If that's what you're looking for, here's maybe a referral to someone else?
I'd say, I don't know, maybe somewhere between 20 and 30% are probably not a good fit. Again, having it be a referral business, I think they come prepared to work the way we want to work, because we work with this client that way, and they got our name from this client. And this is how it worked, and how it went. So we have a built-in sort of referral, and also the reference tends to be somewhat already predetermined, because we had a great experience. There's always certain things that people aren't happy with. Like sometimes it just took too long. We had a client once upon a time, we were doing this project just when COVID kicked off. And that turned into this long protracted project because supply chain just went crazy. And client loved the project. Everybody that they know loved the project, but it just took too long. And that was their perception. And no matter what we did, their perception was that it took way too long. And it did. It took way too long. Trust me, COVID was really hard on everybody in the people. But again,
so unhappy customers happen now and then for different reasons, but those are outlying cases inevitably.
I think so. I think that most of our clients over the years would give us a good reference and some would give us incredible references. And we've got clients that I've 20 years on still give us the greatest references, best contractor we ever worked with. And I've done 20 projects and he's the best one we ever worked with.
Amazing.
And some of these guys I'm fishing buddies with to this day. So yeah, they tend to be pretty good clients and they're good references.
That's amazing. For listeners, I just want to point out a few things here. I really believe in Keith's story here in the business. It's an incredible business. And one thing that I love to talk with owners that have amazing businesses, amazing construction businesses, is actually the community that they've built and all of the goodwill, right? And so there's clients from 20 years ago still giving amazing references. There's clients from years ago, they're fishing buddies, and just the possibility of creating that community of really a joyous business if you do work at that high of quality. That's one thing I want to point out. And the second thing I want to point out is that Keith just said here, even when all of his business comes from referrals, he still turns down, so to speak, 25 or 30% of business because it's important to have the right clients. And the wrong clients, one wrong client can really derail momentum and whatever. And if you're building your business with more marketing, with less kind of referrals, if it's more outbound outreach, you're probably going to have ideally a higher percentage of business that you're turning down. And so you may only be even quoting, say, 50% of all the income and traffic you get. Is that a reasonable read there, Keith?
I think so. I think that realistically, over the years, I can remember years ago when I first started, I advertised in a bunch of different magazines and the little things that are around the neighborhood. And that would be good if you were a high volume, say, remodeling contractor, and you really wanted to get a lot of projects going. And one of the problems with that is that I find, just from a quality perspective, is I can't pay attention to all those little projects and do them well. That spreads yourself too thin. So what I found is I was turning down a lot of those projects. Or if I was taking them, a lot of times I'd take them because I felt, God, I got to take this project because I need the income. And invariably, I got 70% of those would bite you in the butt. That's not the client we wanted.
Interesting.
Turned out to be a problem client. They turned out to not want to pay. They turned out to just be, no one else would take the project. They'd been through 5 different contractors and you finally took it on and think, oh, I can do this better and I'll be fine. And what you find out is you basically just hurt yourself immensely. As hard as it is sometimes, and I've been guilty of taking a project when I knew better, but as hard as it is, you have to be able to say, I really don't want to do that project. We don't have time for any number of a reasonable excuse. I don't have time for it, which is actually true. I don't have time to take on a bad project. Because one of the things that does is it takes up your time and then you can't take another good project on. So if you're in the middle of a project that is just a problem, and someone comes up to you with a really good project, good client, you talk to the client, you have a good rapport with them, communication works really well, and you really want to do that project, but you're in the middle of this project from hell, you can't really do that project justice. It's a hard lesson to learn, and I still have to, in my mind, I have to teach myself that again and again. Do we really want to work for this client? Do we really want to work for that client? So it's something that you constantly have to be aware of, and you think of your own sanity.
That's amazing advice, Keith. I love to hear that. That's guys, if you're listening to this incredible wisdom advice from Keith, advice, whatever, great wisdom. Keith's been at this for 50 years. I've been in my business here for about 8 or 10 years. I'm just starting to understand the truth of what Keith is saying here. Taking on the wrong client can absolutely slow down progress, and yes, gums up the process. So when inevitably a great client comes along, you don't have the time for them, what a terrible situation that is, to be upside down in a business like that. Amazing. Keith, thank you so much for sharing your valuable time. I know you've got so much going on and all your hobbies and different things that you're into. If folks want to get in touch, if they are in Aspen and they want to have a remodel or an incredible house built, or they just want to discuss with you some of the things we talked about here on the episode, what's a good way to get in touch with you?
I have a phone number that you can use anytime. I answer, even if sometimes it's a spam call, but I answer them all. It's 618-3887, or email works too. And it's Keith, Keith, at KMWconstruction.com. And I love talking to people, whether they want to use us or not. I really enjoy imparting, I don't know if it's words of wisdom, but it's just experiential learning. These are things I've learned over the years in the business that hopefully help people get a good project, get a good contractor, whether it's us or somebody else down the road. I like to see people have good experiences in this. It's a hard business. It's a lot of heartache. It's a lot of money, no matter if it's a kitchen or a bathroom or a whole house. It's a lot of people's personal money, and it's better if it's a good experience in the end. It ebbs and flows. You always have these issues where, gee, we just opened this wall and now we have to take your whole bathroom apart. And you have to be able to communicate that with your client. And they have to trust that you're not just giving them a line. So it's a trust both directions for client and for contractor. It's a trust relationship.
Fantastic. That is beautiful. And then guys, if you want to take a look at, and you should go take a look at Keith's website at kmwconstruction.com. You see just beautiful photos of the work that they've done, hear more about kind of their team and also Keith's story, his hobbies, everything. There's some great articles on the site. So fantastic, Keith. You've left your number here, your email. I hope folks get in touch. I would love to work with you. It's been really a great experience for me, very valuable, even for me in my own business. And I might reach out back out to you one of these days, Keith, and run a couple of ideas by you.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a pleasure.
Mark, it's been a pleasure talking to you too. And hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Okay, sounds good, my man. All right, take care.